Good morning, everyone. I wish to thank you for inviting me to deliver this inaugural annual Adeola Odutola lecture. It is indeed an honor to be asked to speak at an event named after one of Nigeria's foremost industrial leaders, Chief Adeola, a former president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. He was a colossus in the industry. He established Nigeria's first industrial manufacturing company called the Odutola Tire and Rubber Company. It manufactured threaded rubber tires among several companies and industries. He gave pride to the made in Nigeria products. As I was coming in, I saw some of the things that were out there saying made in Nigeria, and my mind went straight to Chief Adeola. I remember my growing up days as a kid. We used to roll old tires around the dusty roads of our neighborhood, acting at least as if we also had some cars and had the fortune and pride of riding on Odutola tires. Chief Adeola was a visionary. It is amazing that the reforms that he called for as president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, in 1971, when in fact it was created, he was elected to that, are the same things endeavoring the Nigeria's manufacturing industry today, 5 decades later. In one of his speeches, he lamented the collapse of public utilities and advised that the private sector should be permitted to compete on the provision of these utilities. He pleaded again for the encouragement of manufacturers through a review of the mechanism of the foreign exchange, assistance for manufacturers with infrastructural facilities, and the abandonment of factors which promote uncertainty. That comes straight out of Ruben Abati and Cheson Ajayi's book, Odutola, a biography of Chief Adeola Odutola, African Leadership Forum 1995. If you don't have a copy of that book, I ask you to please get a copy of it. In the words of Odutola, and I quote, "There are other ancillary services and problem areas worth stressing because they are vital to economic development. A, inadequacy of industrial plots. B, water supply. C, bad conditions of roads in many estates. D, inadequate sanitation and waste disposal services. And E, more warehousing facilities." He foresaw the inherent dangers of Nigeria abandoning the manufacturing sector after the discovery of oil. And he said, and I quote, "Oil will finish while industry will not." End of quote. Yes, indeed. Chief Adeola, as you rest in peace, your words resonate loudly yet in this hall today as I start to deliver my Odutola lecture titled "Overcoming Binding Constraints to Competitive Manufacturing for Intra-Regional Trade." Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for decades, Africa's development trajectory has been based on the export of raw materials and natural resources. The continent has abundant natural resources: oil, gas, minerals, metals, agricultural and forest products, and the blue economy. Estimated at $30 trillion in potential wealth, Africa's natural resources are enough to make it one of the wealthiest in the world. But tragically and ironically, Africa's massive natural resources have not translated into wealth. The reason is simple: a dependency on the export of raw materials with very little or no value addition. Put in a stark way, lack of industrial manufacturing. That's simple. African countries export natural resources and import manufactured products. It is a race to the bottom, where the only assured commonality in the face of limited industrial manufacturing is rising poverty, export of jobs, vicissitudes of volatility of commodity prices, and import dependency. Hard-earned foreign exchange is used to support a high propensity for imported goods, machinery, equipment, and raw materials to support industries. The low level of industrial manufacturing is at the core of the slow structural transformation of African economies, with dominance of primary sectors. The situation has been partly perpetuated by the escalation of tariffs on exports of manufactured goods from Africa. For example, export of raw materials attract very low tariffs, but value-added products from Africa face steep tariffs. The economic and wealth divergence between wealthy developed and low-income developing countries simply derives from their differential levels of industrial manufacturing. Wealthy nations export value-added manufactured products, while poor or low-income nations export commodities with little or no value addition. Low-income countries are perpetually at the mercy of price volatility, throwing their economies into perennial swings. Take the case of agriculture. While the price of cotton will always fall, not so the prices of apparel and textiles. While the price of cocoa will always fall, not so the prices of chocolates. While the prices of coffee beans will always fall, not so the price of brewed coffee in Starbucks. No wonder Africa's share of global value chain is a miserly 1.9%, leaving a continent of 1.3 billion people and their economies stuck at the bottom of global value chains. Africa should therefore wake up and smell the coffee. That is the proverbial coffee, and industrialize. That's why the African Development Bank, Industrialize Africa, is one of the high five priorities that I set for the African Development Bank when I was elected president first in 2015. There is an urgent need for Africa to rapidly diversify its economies and add value to everything that it produces. Exporting raw materials only leads to vulnerabilities, and no nation or region has succeeded ever by simply exporting raw materials. While for decades, the share of manufacturing in Nigeria's GDP has hovered around 7%, the nation has not been able to extricate itself from the comatose of its industrial manufacturing sector to unleash the fullness of its potential. The performance of the manufacturing sector in the past 5 years have been poor. Between 2015 and 2017, the sector declined by minus 1.5%, minus 4.3%, and minus 0.2%. This, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, is in sharp contrast to the dynamic and rapid performance of the manufacturing in Asian countries such as Singapore, Malaysia, and China. While Asian countries have focused on export of manufactured products, Nigeria's approach has been on import substitution. The manufacturing sector of Nigeria represents only 3% of total revenues from exports, but it accounts for 50% of imports into the country. Instead of being forward-looking in expanding the share of manufactured goods in its total export revenue, Nigeria focuses on the model of import substitution. Ladies and gentlemen, import substitution, while important, is a very restrictive vision. It looks towards survival instead of looking to create wealth through greater export market and value diversification. The end result is a manufacturing sector that cannot develop or compete globally, but limit itself to survival mode, and not a global manufacturing growth mode. Nigeria must have a greater ambition for its manufacturing sector by integrating and rapidly moving up global and regional value chains in areas of comparative advantage, by driving greater specialization and competitiveness. A well-developed and policy-enabled manufacturing sector with an export orientation will spur greater innovation, industrial policies for export market development, and the structural transformation of the economy. Instead of being consumed with the conservation of foreign exchange, the focus will shift to expanding foreign exchange through enhanced export value diversification. We should become more proactive, not reactive. Let us take the example of Vietnam, a nation at war for 20 years. From the American War to the Second Indochina War. Despite its challenges, it quickly mimicked successful Asian countries, such as South Korea, by pushing into relatively complex product categories and horizontal diversification with the processing of agricultural products. Ladies and gentlemen, Vietnam's export in 2020 were very well diversified, with electrical machinery and equipment alone earning it a whopping $153 billion. Machinery, including computers, $23.9 billion. Footwear, $23.8 billion. Clothing and accessories, $15.5 billion, among others. In total, Vietnam's exports in 2020 was worth $348 billion. Malaysia, Your Excellencies, achieved vertical diversification from its agricultural base of rubber and palm oil, investing heavily in high-tech sectors such as electronics. In 2020, its biggest exports by value were in electronic industry integrated circuits, refined petroleum oils, palm oil, vulcanized rubber and accessories, and solar power diodes and semiconductors. Malaysia's export values in 2020 depended on electrical machinery and equipment worth $86.6 billion. Mineral fuels, including oil, $25.5 billion. Machinery, including computers, $20.2 billion. Animal, vegetable oils and waxes, $13.5 billion. Rubber and rubber articles, $11.2 billion, among others. In total, Malaysia's export in 2020 was valued at $234 billion. By contrast, Nigeria's exports in 2020 were dominated by mineral oils, fuels, including oil, valued at $29.7 billion, which accounted for 89% of the exports. Nigeria's total export value was a mere $33.5 billion. That dollar amount represents a minus 3.6% decrease since 2016 and a drop of minus 37.5% in 2019 to 2020. Interestingly, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria's imports were dominated by machinery, including computers, mineral oils, including oil, vehicles, electrical machinery, and equipment, pharmaceuticals, and plastics. These are the same things being exported by Vietnam and also by Malaysia. By contrast, most of these imports, as I said, are what Vietnam and Malaysia export in abundance. And worse, Nigeria imports mineral fuels, which it should be producing as the leading crude oil exporting nation. It exports crude, it imports refined products, it befuddling irony. So what is the message here? While Nigeria's export basket has hardly changed, Malaysia and Vietnam have used aggressive horizontal and vertical industrial manufacturing diversification to move from low-value products to high-value market products. The result is seen in the comparative wealth of the three countries. While export value per capita is 7,100 in Malaysia and 3,600 for Vietnam, it is only $160 for Nigeria. While Malaysia and Vietnam move to global manufacturing growth mode, creating massive wealth and jobs for themselves, Nigeria remains in a survival mode, still unable to substitute the imports of its petroleum products, while being one of the largest exporters of crude oil. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, African countries, including Nigeria, have had policies, templates, and programs for industrialization and expanding industrial manufacturing for decades. Nigeria's first national development plan emphasized industrialization. There was the National Economic Empowerment Development Strategy (NEED) in the 1990s, and the Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan (NIRP) in 2015. These were all good policies. But there is a need to close the huge gap between policy ideas and implementation. Today, capacity utilization of factories hovers around 40% compared to the desired 70%. The reality, in view of several challenges facing the industrial manufacturing sector, is that firms are moving to neighboring countries where there is greater macroeconomic stability, enabling environments, and a much better ease of doing business. I know there's been quite a lot of debate globally about ease of doing business, and all those things. But I sometimes wonder whether when we talk about ease of doing business, what we really mean is ease of doing business or the pain of doing business. Because manufacturers suffer quite a lot, not just here, but in many African countries because of lack of enabling infrastructure. So maybe we should be talking about the pain of doing business. To be a manufacturer in Nigeria is not an easy business. You succeed not because of the ease of doing business, but by surmounting several constraints that limit and continue to limit industrial manufacturing. Today, the major challenge facing Nigeria's manufacturing is a very high cost and the unreliability of electricity supplies. Load shedding and the inconsistent availability of electrical power have resulted in high and uncompetitive manufacturing costs. Most Nigerian manufacturing companies self-provide their own energy with a high dependence on generators, diesels, and heavy fuel oil. Their emissions contributions make them brown industries, not green industries. It has been estimated by the IMF that Nigeria loses $29 billion annually, that is 5.8% of its GDP, due to a lack of reliable power supply. Also, that Nigeria spends $14 billion per year on generators and diesel. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a lack of electricity is killing Nigerian industries, something Chief Adeola was concerned about way back in 1971. According to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, industries spend $93.1 billion, I must say, on alternative energy in 2018. That is 47 years after Chief Adeola. Today, no business can survive in Nigeria without generators. Consequently, the abnormal has become normal. I was traveling one day on the road in Lagos, and I saw an advertisement on the billboard which caught my attention. It was advertising generators with a bold statement on it: "We are the nation's #1 reliable power supply." Now, compare that to the situation in South Korea, which has diversified its exports into high-value manufacturing. On a trip I had to South Korea a few years ago, I visited the Korea Electric Power Corporation, called KEPCO. While I was being briefed, I was told that the country experiences only 2 minutes of power outage. Now, not sure that I heard correctly. I very quickly asked whether they meant 2 minutes per hour, 2 minutes per day, 2 minutes per week, or 2 minutes per month. The response was quick and swift and resolute: 2 minutes per year. How then can Nigeria compare and compete with Korea? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, unless Nigeria decisively tackles its electricity, energy deficiency, and reliability, its industries will always remain uncompetitive. There should be massive investment in variable energy mixes, including gas, hydropower resources, and large-scale solar systems to ensure stable baseload power for industries, to direct power preferentially to industries, and to support industrial mini-grids to concentrate power in industrial zones. In addition, we should develop more efficient utilities, reducing technical and non-technical losses in power generation, transmission, and distribution systems. The African Development Bank invests massively in the power sector in Nigeria to support the implementation of the government's power sector recovery program. The bank provided $200 million to the Nigerian electrification project, designed to fill the electricity access gap in Nigeria. We have also invested $210 million in Nigerian power transmission project, to strengthen the grid power evacuation and regional interconnection. The African Development Bank has launched what's called Desert to Power Initiative, a $20 billion initiative to provide electricity to 250 million people across 11 countries of the Sahel, including all across northern Nigeria. Desert to Power will create the world's largest solar zone. The initiative will draw lessons from our successful projects already financed by the bank, which includes the new Ouarzazate in Morocco, which is the world's largest concentrated solar power plant, and the Benban solar project in Egypt. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, industrial development in Nigeria is further constrained by the poor state of transport, ports, and logistic infrastructure. It costs $35,000 to export 100 tons of produce from Nigeria, compared to just $4,000 in Ghana. About 90% of passenger and freight movement in Nigeria rely on roads. But let's be serious about it. Only 18% of the roads are paved. Meanwhile, our seaports are simply gridlocked. Recently, the Financial Times reported that the congestion at the ports in Lagos has become so bad that it could cost more than $4,000 to truck a container 20 kilometers inland in Lagos, almost as much as it costs to ship it 12,000 nautical miles all the way from China. Nigerian ports have become revenue generation centers and do not support industrial manufacturing. I recall when I was Minister of Agriculture, what a great honor it was to be a Minister of the Federal Republic. And we were supporting local industrial processing of rice, which ignited the paddy rice revolution in Nigeria and the rapid industrial rice milling of locally grown rice in Nigeria. The then Controller General of Customs, it's not you, General Colonel Lisa, I know you here, was upset that local rice production and industrial processing of finished and quality local rice was taking over a significant share of the market, while being competitive increasingly with imports. He blotted out that, I quote, the Minister of Agriculture, which is myself, has removed the glory of Apapa Port, whose glory was known for rice imports. We used to collect a lot of revenue from rice imports at the Apapa Port in its glory days. Now that is no longer the case, end of quote, he said. What an irony it was. Here, Nigeria can and must learn from Morocco. The African Development Bank supported Morocco to develop its Tangier main port. The port is unique in that it is an industrial port complex, a platform that has over 1,100 companies. They collectively exported 8 billion euros of goods in 2020. Global companies are located right there, including Bosch, Daimler, Huawei, Siemens, and several others. The companies located there have allowed Morocco to move up the global value chains, including in automobiles, automotive parts, aeronautics, agriculture and food manufacturing, textiles and logistics. Annually, over 460,000 cars are manufactured in the zone for export. And more interesting is that the bulk of the human resources to do this are actually Moroccans. My wife and I decided to take a walk at the Tangier Med port. I thought they were on vacation, as I did not see people, just machines, haulers, automated systems, moving containers in what looked like a well-synchronized maze with incredible efficiency. There were no kilometers of trucks waiting to get to the port. Ladies and gentlemen, we should move away from the usual Gestapo approaches of raiding ports or deploying soldiers to decongest ports or even vehicular traffic at ports. We should not be decongesting the ports in Nigeria. We should be transforming the ports in Nigeria. And this must start with cleaning up administrative bottlenecks, most of which are simply unnecessary, with multiple government agencies at the ports, high transaction costs, or even plain extortions of illegal taxes which do not go into the coffers of the government where it belongs. The African Development Bank invests heavily in infrastructure. In the past 2 decades, we have invested over $40 billion in infrastructure. In the past 5 years, we have also invested some $10 billion in infrastructure, especially for regional infrastructure, including roads, highways, transport corridors, seaports, airports, ICT infrastructure, and regional power transport networks. The bank has invested $369.2 million for the highway connecting Enugu to Bamenda in Cameroon, a transport corridor that will serve 11 million people. The bank has also invested $49.5 million in the Lekki toll road, easing traffic and lowering transport costs. The bank has provided $12.6 million to ECOWAS Commission to support the feasibility study for the Lagos to Abidjan corridor highway, expected to and we expect to finance the corridor, which will carry over 80% of the trade in the region. This will enhance transport connection from Nigeria into the rest of West Africa region, with one-stop border posts to facilitate intra-regional trade. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the African Continental Free Trade Area presents a huge opportunity for Nigeria to drive an export-driven import manufacturing pathway. The inward-looking import substitution plans that have been pursued over time ensure that local industries were unprepared when the Continental Free Trade Area was established. Some of the concerns were purely legitimate, especially the challenge of dumping illegal imports into Nigeria, which has a direct effect on the profitability of local industries. However, illegal imports cannot happen if there is respect for the rule of law. Illegal imports happen because of the porosity of the borders and ingrained rent-seeking and corruption at the borders. The size of the free trade zone, with a collective GDP of $3.3 trillion, makes it the largest free trade zone in the world in terms of number of countries. We must be ready to seize the opportunity and become a key player based on our massive potential. However, for the full potential of the zone to be felt, it should go beyond being just a zone for duty-free trading between African countries. Unless African countries manufacture more of what is imported into the zone, simply having high common external tariffs will not stem imports of those manufacturers into the zone. The African Continental Free Trade Area should therefore be a manufacturing zone, not just a trading zone. Otherwise, we will have succeeded in creating a well-organized consumption zone for imported raw materials, machinery, and equipment from others. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria should unlock its industrial manufacturing capacities to take advantage of duty-free exports within the zone. Doing so requires decisively tackling the infrastructure and logistic bottlenecks that hamper industrial capacity and competitiveness, establishing and enforcing quality, grades, and standards of products, assuring access of industries to land. And by the way, just on that, just to let you know, if you're in Rwanda or you're in Ethiopia, when you actually need land for industries, they give it to you free of charge. So I don't know why land is a big problem here. So we must provide investment relations management to attract investors and also trade facilitation. The drive of the federal government and the state governments towards export processing zones is commendable. While export processing zones provide incentive for exporters, they should rapidly move towards becoming special economic zones to allow for better clustering of farms, production sharing, and learning platforms for multiple industries. With the African Continental Free Trade Area, or the Free Trade Area, Nigeria, ladies and gentlemen, will face stiffer competition on the establishment of industrial manufacturing platforms. Let me explain. With rising wages in China and other Asian countries, as they move from labor-intensive industries to more knowledge-intensive industries, they are now outshoring their light manufacturing industries. The so-called flying D's model is on the rise, as these countries outsource their manufacturing capacities to new industrial manufacturing platforms with lower labor costs, from where they launch into markets regionally and globally. Ethiopia has been very successful in its special economic zones, which have allowed it to attract significant investments in multiple industries, including leather, footwear, textiles, garments, and pharmaceuticals. Ethiopia's well-established one-stop shops aggressively seek out investors, maintain and strengthen investor-state relations, and use them in turn to attract other investors. Let me pause here and give you an insight before I continue to my speech. I visited Ethiopia recently, and I was with Prime Minister Abiy, a great man doing phenomenal work there in Ethiopia. I was there for 4 days. He personally himself drove me for 4 days in all the places that I went by himself. And we decided that we should go and see the Hawassa zone, the area where they have their manufacturing complexes. I was literally amazed. We got there, and I was asking, where are the people? I can't find anybody. The whole place was quiet. Then one gentleman walked up to me and said, "Sir, let's take you inside of the zone, inside of the factories." When I entered, I saw no less than 5,000 women working in these beautiful industries, stitching, textile, garment, footwear, you name it. I was actually so much surprised. And I will tell you another thing, because I know some of you here are former military chiefs. He decided that he should take me to go and see their defense headquarters. When I got to their defense headquarters, I met with the chief of air staff. And he took my wife and I right into this hangars. Well, honestly, if you want to really fight Ethiopia, be careful, because the kind of aircraft and fleets they have is incredible. I've never seen them. And so anyway, we walk into these hangars, and the chief of defense staff, chief of air staff, he told me, he said, "Well, let me walk you into this." And I walked into them. And I saw all manner of sophisticated aircrafts being done, being fixed, being retooled, being reverse engineered, not by any foreigner, but by Ethiopians. And I looked, there was this particular aircraft. He said it costs about $150 million to manufacture. They were able to reverse engineer it, make it modern for 4 million euros. And I said, "But what's the lesson here?" I think he knew I was from Nigeria, so I guess there was something he needed to tell me. And as we stood there, he said, "Well, you know, we got all this," he went on his way to a country in Europe, in Hungary or something like that. And that at that point, he saw his counterpart from Nigeria, who actually came to the same place. And he asked me, "What did you come here to do?" And he said, "Well, you know, we dismembered our aircraft, and we brought it here for them to fix it." And he said, "You did that? You should bring it to Ethiopia, because we will fix everything and reverse engineer it for you." I walked into the car and I sat there. On our way, the chief of air staff looked at me and he said, "Your Excellency, I just want to remind you of that. Let's start manufacturing things by ourselves, even our aircraft. Let's raise ambition. Why can't Nigeria manufacture aircraft. It's a challenge I give to us. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria has established the Guangdong-Ogo Free Trade Zone, the Lekki Free Trade Zone, the Calabar Free Trade Zone. The newly constructed $19 billion Dangote petrochemical and fertilizer complex, the world's largest ammonia plant, is in the free trade zone. With a new deep sea port, this is exactly the kind of massive infrastructure and industrial manufacturing that is needed to make Nigeria a regional and global player in gasoline, diesel, aviation fuel, and fertilizer value chains. And I think Engineer Marco, I saw you when I was sitting here, and I think we should clap him because he's done a tremendous job for Dangote. He's a very quiet man, but incredible industrialist. And also Engineer Ahmed yourself. Thank you for all your great work. Greater efforts will be needed in Nigeria to improve coordination fairness, interagency cooperation, ensure stability of the policy environment, and avoid policy reversals to assure investors. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the future benefits those who anticipate and prepare for. Nigeria must now look beyond the industries of today into the industries of the future and develop a plan and a capacity to compete in the smart industries that will become the main drivers of global economies. The fourth industrial revolution, based on automation, robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data computing, 3D printing, you can actually almost print your food these days, and additive manufacturing are rapidly transforming industrial manufacturing. Nigeria must therefore enhance its readiness to transition to digitized and smart manufacturing. The rising use of robots for manufacturing pose a challenge to Nigeria's drive to attract investments. These will become competitive in labor-intensive. This will become an issue in labor-intensive light manufacturing. Let me explain. As capital costs continue to fall than labor costs, developed countries are shifting towards reliance on industrial robots for manufacturing. Competition will become tougher in global value chains with robotics, as they could simply wipe out labor cost advantage in many African countries. The rise in robotics in manufacturing is leading to a rethink in the structure of global value chains. Developed countries with high labor costs that have previously outsourced their manufacturing to low-wage countries for labor-intensive manufacturing are shifting. With declining cost of cognitive robots, the low labor cost advantage of Africa will be reduced, as these countries are now restructuring their models by reshoring previously outsourced manufacturing capacity back into their own home countries. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the future of manufacturing will be digital. The global digital economy is estimated to be worth $16 trillion. The use of Internet of Things will raise productivity of labor in manufacturing as they deploy smart machines, manufacturing platforms and systems, connecting machines and people, and using machine learning and artificial intelligence to improve the speed and efficiencies of complex manufacturing processes. That future, ladies and gentlemen, is already here. It is time to reimagine the industrial manufacturing in Nigeria. It is time for rapid investment in digital skills for manufacturing, retooling of workers, vocational training, digitization of industrial processes, investment in digital infrastructure, and the enabling environment. It is time to prepare students in sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It is time for the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria to establish industrial digital skills academies and to link them to universities and technology innovation hubs. These will help to reskill and retool workers to prepare them for the jobs of tomorrow. It is time for the federal and state governments to make massive investments even further in digital infrastructure. That is why the African Development Bank is preparing investments in the digital and creative enterprises. It's called IDICE, and our boss, you're here, NGF, program in Nigeria. A $600 million investment to be co-financed with several partners, which will promote entrepreneurship and innovation in digital technology and creative industries. It is time to also make bold policy measures to drive the structural transformation of agriculture with infrastructure and spatial economic policies that will help to turn the rural economies of Nigeria away from being zones of economic misery to becoming zones of economic prosperity. The key for this is the development of special agro-industrial processing zones, or called SAPZs, across the country. These will be zones enabled with infrastructure and logistics to support private sector, food and agriculture companies to locate close to the areas of production and to process and add value to food and agricultural commodities. They will be zones to transform cotton into textile and garments. They will be zones to turn tomatoes into purees and tomato paste. They will be zones to produce and turn milk into cheese, butter, and substituted imported milk. They will be zones to drive massive transformation of finished rice products, as in Dr. Ku here. Thank you for the work that you're doing there. Your farm is where? Is this Adan? Yeah, I remember as minister you were doing quite a great work. So clap for him. I love Nigeria rice. I remember when he was doing rice and he came to my office as minister and he wanted to move his company, I think from somewhere in the north where he was having some challenges, and he said, Honourable Minister, I want to move my rice to Adan area. And I said, no big deal. It didn't take me 5 minutes to approve it, and I'm glad that it's working. Congratulations to all of you. There will be zones to process palm oil, cocoa, and cassava into derivative products that will earn us greater revenues. We are working very closely with the federal government, 7 state governments, the Federal Capital Territory, the Ministries of Finance, Agriculture, Trade, Industry and Investment, Water Resources, and the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority on the design of these special agro-industrial processing zones. They are expected to create 1.5 million jobs. The African Development Bank and its partners have already mobilized $520 million towards the first phase of the special agro-industrial processing zones in Nigeria. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a perennial binding constraint facing manufacturers in Nigeria is the unpredictability and availability of foreign exchange. This is not an easy issue to resolve. It is often emotive, yet it must be addressed pragmatically and structurally. Emotions run economies down, but sound policies make economies to thrive. Multiple exchange rates create opportunities for financial arbitrage, while restricting access to forex constraints, manufacturers import machinery, equipment, and raw materials. The constrained access to forex has led to dependence on the parallel market as the forces of demand and supply drive widening gaps between official and parallel market rates. The fall in the price of oil and the decline in foreign reserves have further put downward pressure on the currency. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to grow Nigeria's economy in a transformational way, there is a compelling need to move away from a primary dependence on managing demand for forex to expanding the supply and availability of forex through greater export-oriented manufacturing. These will extricate Nigeria from relying on the export of crude oil for access to forex and the instability that arises from the shocks to global oil prices. Nigeria, therefore, needs greater export earning diversification to boost its supply of forex to support its industries. It also needs to focus on domestic manufacturing of a large share of the inputs of manufacturers, expand local content by rapidly moving into processing of raw materials, the manufacturing of equipment and machinery, which form 50% of the inputs. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to boost manufacturing, access to affordable finance is critical, especially long-term financing that matches the investment gestation of companies. PricewaterhouseCoopers, Nigeria estimates that medium, small, and micro enterprises account for 50% of Nigeria's GDP. Yet, they receive only 1% of total credit from financial institutions. They estimated the financing gap for medium, small, and micro enterprises to be 670 billion naira. Your Excellencies, nations that have expanded their industrial manufacturing competitiveness have been those which provide incentives for their companies, especially low interest rate financing. Just think of the following. Interest rates are negative in Japan, minus 0.1%. In the United States, it is 3.9%. In China, it is 0.25%. In India, it is 4%. Manufacturers in Nigeria face extremely high interest rates at over 15%. The Bank of Industry, the Nigerian Import and Export Bank, and the Bank of Agriculture should be significantly capitalized to provide loans at affordable interest to manufacturers, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises. The deepening of the domestic capital markets will further allow companies to access equity financing they need to grow their businesses. The African Development Bank's SME financing facility supports small and medium-sized enterprises by assuring financing to large, medium, and small businesses. Nigeria will ensure integration of its supply chains into regional and global markets. The African Development Bank has so far provided $1.73 billion in low interest rates line of credit to support many financial institutions in Nigeria. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as I draw to the close of my lecture, I want to say to you that to drive greater investments in Africa, the African Development Bank and its partners launched what is called the Africa Investment Forum. It was I launched it in 2018 as a fully transactional platform to develop bankable projects, to close deals, and to fast-track financial closure on projects. The forum, in its first year, we attracted $38.1 billion of investment interest, all in less than 72 hours. In 2019, that it was done second time, We achieved $40.1 billion of investment interest, all in less than 72 hours. Africa is banking. If you're not investing in Africa, I don't know where your bank is. Some of these investments include $200 million infra-credit project in Nigeria and the $24 billion liquefied natural gas project in Mozambique. The 2021 edition of the Africa Investment Forum will be held in Abidjan on the 1st to the 3rd of December in a hybrid virtual mode. You are all invited to attend and showcase your investments for expanding industrial manufacturing in Nigeria for intra-regional trade. So, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let's revamp industrial manufacturing in Nigeria. With the right policies, investment frameworks, infrastructure, logistics and financing framework, and powered by a highly trained, dynamic and useful workforce, Nigeria must fully unleash the power of manufacturing. As Chief Adeola said, and I quote him, "Oil will finish, industries will not." Industrial manufacturing can earn Nigeria 10 times what Nigeria currently earns by relying on oil. So let's change our perspectives away from simply import substitution to high-value, export-oriented manufacturing. The source of Nigeria's greater wealth will come from having strong manufacturing capacity for competitiveness in regional trade and integration into global value chains. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to change from being inward-looking to outward-looking. For outside lies incredible opportunities yet to be tapped by Nigeria. Let us be bold. Let us rise with great ambition and a much greater ambition. Let us, from the inside, prepare for this great future for Nigeria, a dominant Nigeria in global manufacturing. Vietnam has done it. Malaysia has done it. Singapore has done it. China has done it. Hello. This is Nigeria's time. Let's make it happen. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.